Seems like all I could see was the struggle, haunted by ghosts that lived in my past, bound up in shackles of all my failures. Wondering how long is this gonna last? Then you look at this prisoner and say to me, son,
Stop fighting a fight that's already been won. 'Cause I am redeemed. You set me free.
So I'll shake off these heavy chains
And wipe away every stain. 'Cause I'm not who I used to be.
I am redeemed. I'm redeemed.
Hey guys, hi.
All my life I have been called unworthy, named by the voice of my shame and regret. But when I hear you whisper, child, lift up your head.
Lift up your head.
Remember, oh God,
You're not done with me yet. I am redeemed. You set me free.
so I'll shake off these heavy chains.
And wipe away every stain. 'Cause I'm not who I used to be.
Because
The old,
don't have to be,
the old man inside of me.
'cause his day is long dead and gone. Because I've got a new name, a new life, I'm not the same, and a hope that will carry me home. I am redeemed.
You set me free.
So I'll shake off these heavy chains
And wipe away every stain. Now I'm not who I used to be. Hey guys.
I am redeemed.
So that is Big Daddy Weave. I am a big K-Love fan. I listen to a lot of K-Love. There's just so many awesome artists, that, for me, it's not about religion. I'm a very spiritual person. And, I wouldn't really say gospel music. I don't know. I mean, in a way, I guess that is gospel music. It's just, I'm a little different. So anyway, hey guys, I just wanted to jump online today. It's been a minute since my last video. So usually I have Sunday off, but I decided to pick up a shift. If you watched any of my earlier videos, you would have seen me talking about going through some stuff at work and getting bumped into feelings that kind of affected my mental health. And, my manager had suggested that I take a day off here and a day off there. And I did that. And because I missed those 2 days, I'm like, okay, let me pick up a shift. So I did work. Today's Sunday. I usually have Sunday off, but I decided to work. So I just got home from work, hence the clothing. Because of the line of work that I do, I have to dress a certain way. Um, it's like mad hot outside. It's like 90 something degrees, and I have on a hoodie, but it is what it is. So, anyway, today I want to talk about, things that can, there are things in this world when you talk about people who suffer from depression. Unfortunately, there is a lot in this world that can, make a person depressed. Besides it being a real medical condition, earlier in my videos, I talked about how, your brain makes two chemicals, epinephrine and serotonin, and, sometimes your brain can either lack one or the other, or it doesn't produce as much as it should of one or the other, and you end up having to take mental health meds, which are basically the chemicals that your brain is lacking, whichever one it's falling behind in, whether it's the serotonin or epinephrine. Hence you get depression. Besides that, I don't know if anyone has actually purchased a book that I recently wrote called God's Gift to You or not yet. And if you are still trying to decide if that's something that you might want to invest in, and if it would be any helpful information in that book to you or not. So I just do these videos just to let people get to know me, and then they could see for themselves how I came to write my book, God's Gift to You. And that might help you to make that decision of whether or not, it's worth investing into. So, for those who don't know, I did write a book called God's Gift to You, and it is about my childhood growing up with my parents, whom, at the time, as a child in my neighborhood, it was very heavily infested with young adults who were dealing drugs, using and abusing drugs. And, unfortunately, when you're a young adult and you are struggling with the disease of addiction, unfortunately, if you are having children or you have young children, this can affect the children. Without giving away my book, that's pretty much what it's about. And by reading the book, it will help you to understand how I myself came into having depression. Some of the symptoms of having depression would be I have anxiety attacks and panic attacks, which again resulted from, the traumatic childhood that I had. Anyway, so today's episode, I wanted to talk about, like I said, I like to talk about depression. There is so much in the world to be depressed about. So today I'm going to talk to you about, my identity. So my father, who is Narragansett Indian, married my mother, who is, I really don't know for sure what my mother is. The reason why I say that is because my mom was taken away from her mom when she was 7 years old, never to see or hear from her parents again. Her father passed away, I think, when she was 18 years old, so I never met him. I don't think I was even born yet. I don't think she had me till she was 19. And I never met her mother either because, like I said, she was taken away from her mom when she was 7 years old, never to see or hear from her mother again. My mother was an only child, so I didn't have any aunts or uncles or cousins, from my mother's side. later on in the years, my mom had informed me that she considered herself to be West Indian. Um, I don't know how true that is. My mother is very dark in complexion. Although she's a very dark skinned woman, I think she's a very beautiful woman. Like, um, so like her skin tone is like very dark in color, but it has a glow to it. She has like a pointy nose and these little tiny lips, and she's a little woman herself. I always considered her to be kind of short, very small woman. Um, anyway, so my father, on the other hand, he grew up in a single parent home. He grew up with his mom, and he has several brothers and sisters. Like, I think there's like 12 or 13 of them that my grandmother had. Um, and there's just so much information that gets passed down from generation to generation to generation. And somewhere along that line of communication from generation to generation to generation, things get like lost in transmission, or sometimes information is misinterpreted. So, okay, so like my father's mother, she had several children by several different men, um, and they were like men of different nationalities. I have two aunts who are Puerto Rican that my grandmother had with a Puerto Rican man. He's from Puerto Rico. He speaks Spanish. They speak Spanish. I have, okay, so my grandmother's first two children, which would be my dad and my aunt, um, she had her first two children by a man who is Narragansett Indian. So my dad identifies as Narragansett Indian. Like, he knows his father. He knows his dad is Narragansett Indian from Rhode Island. Like, my grandfather also served in the army, something, one of those things. But he did grow. My grandfather's from Rhode Island. He grew up on the reservation around his Native American people. Um, so anyway, he had two children with my grandmother. Now, growing up as a young girl, I believe that I heard, I don't know if it came from my grandmother herself or if I got this misinformation from other family members. Like, I was really close to my father. I was really close to his family, like my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. And part of that is because, like I said, my mom was an only child and she doesn't have brothers and sisters. But because of my relationship with my father, like, I knew my father's parents, I knew his brothers and sisters. Like, I'm more familiar with my father's side of the family than I am my mom's side of the family. But anyway, so somewhere along the translation, I learned that my grandmother, my father's mother, was Cherokee Indian, but I also heard that her father was Italian. So apparently, my father's mother, my grandmother, is somewhat half Italian, half Cherokee Indian. I'm not really sure about that information. And if you was to ever see my grandmother, yeah, like growing up with her, sometimes she would make Italian food. We ate Italian food. Other times we ate Spanish food because her last relationship, which was by the man from Puerto Rico that she had two children with, he was the man that I remember in my grandmother's home. Like, when I would go visit my grandmother, he was there. And when I would be at my aunt's house, one of them being his daughter, he would come to visit. So, like I said, he was the one in my grandma's home. Sometimes he would cook and we would eat Spanish food, roast pork. I think they call that beni, rice and beans. I loved his rice and beans. Anyway, As far as mom, like mom may be of some type of African descent. But she, like when I was a little girl living in her home, she cooked like Southern food, collard greens, baked macaroni and cheese. She used to make black eyed peas, which I do not eat black eyed peas. I think, if you eat black eyed peas, that's on you, that's fine. But for me, like I'm good. And she would make things like she would cook, what is that called? Chitlins. Like, I am not eating no freaking chitlins. I don't know if you ever seen those things or smelled those things, but yeah, I'm good. We're not doing that. So just to give you a little information as far as what it was like for me growing up with my mom. Again, I lived with my mom. It was a one parent home. I lived in the home with my mom, even though I know my father, they were not together. Um, my dad was always there in my life in one way or another, even though he did not live in the home with me and my mom. Um, After my father, my mom went on to have two other children by two other different men. So, four children, three different men. The three fathers would pop up every now and then. They were like in and out. They never stayed. Um, so, getting on with, and when you ask, like I've had people, like when I was growing up, I've had people approach me speaking to me in Spanish, and I'll just be looking at them like, yeah, okay, I'm not Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. And they'll be shocked, like, oh, you don't speak Spanish? No, I don't speak Spanish. Um, I've had people say I look Cape Verdean. Um, to me, I'm like, I don't look Cape Verdean. Like, why can't Cape Verdeans just look like me? Um, I've been told that in my younger years as an adult that I could have passed for Ethiopian. Yeah, I don't know what that's about, but anyway. So, me myself, I do identify as being Narragansett Indian only because, like, this is my father. This is his culture. He is Narragansett Indian. I've met his father. His father is Narragansett Indian. He grew up in like Charlestown, in those areas. And let me just say, I really don't know much about the Narragansett Indian or, any American Indians for that matter, because I grew up, like I said, with my mom in a black neighborhood, in a black environment. Um, I was born in the late 60s, so we're talking 70s, early 80s. I lived in a black community. Back then in Boston, it was still a lot of segregation going on. Like, Caucasian people did not visit our African American communities. And that's like the technical term. I myself prefer to just say black, whatever. So, like I said, like black people did not go into the Caucasian neighborhoods. Caucasian people did not come into the black neighborhoods unless there was drugs involved. And even then it was risky, like for a Caucasian slash white person to need drugs that bad that they would risk coming into the black neighborhoods. A lot of Caucasian white people did not really want to go into the black neighborhoods because they risk getting robbed. They risk like something like really bad physically could happen to them. So it was very rare that we seen Caucasian or white people in my neighborhood as a kid growing up, unless it was like truancy officers, caseworkers, some family had got involved with Department of Social Services, and then people would have to come out to investigate your parents' home. And even then, like if it was like a Caucasian person, there will always be a black person with that Caucasian person, because they always came in pairs, like two truancy officers, two caseworkers, and that's just how it was back in the early to late 70s and early 80s. Again, with my dad, he was the one who tells me stories about, what it was like being a Narragansett Indian. And I remember, like, as a young girl, he had suggested that he was going to, like, send me to live on the reservation, which back then in my mind, I didn't believe that they had electricity. And I was like, I'm going to go somewhere to live and they have no electricity. Like, what am I going to do about my blow dryer? How am I going to blow dry my hair? They still had outhouses. And I'm like, I grew up in a city in Boston, Mass. I like concrete ground. I like buildings. I prefer bathrooms indoors. Like, I am not going to live on the reservation and be tracking through the freaking woods to use an outhouse. Like, imagine me at night if I had to go to the bathroom, tracking through some daggone woods to go to some outhouse and pull my pants down and handle my business. Like, yeah, we're not doing that. So I never wanted to go, to live down there, wherever this reservation is, or, Charlestown, or wherever the Narragansett Indian people resided. I was very comfortable with my mom in the city of Boston. People, lights, street lights, also, like, when people are young, okay, so whatever transpired between my grandmother and my father's father, like, as far as their relationship, like how they got together, how they ended up having two children together, how the relationship was, how the relationship fell apart. Like, there's a lot of things that I do not know. And when you're a young girl, like, you hear stories, and then I have my father who's like telling me, what it's like to be a Narragansett Indian, what it's like living on that land. And then, like, as an adult, like, my dad was like, you should go to the powwows, like the American Indians or Narragansett Indians or whatever tribe Indians have, like, this yearly celebration that they call the powwow. So my father's like, oh, now that I live in Rhode Island, oh, you should go down to the powwow and, let them know your last name and they all know you and you're a Hopkins, and, all you got to do is tell them my name or your grandfather's name, and, everybody will know you and blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, Dad. So my experience with that, like, I go down to the reservation one year to a powwow, and sure enough, I told them my name at the gate, and they knew me, they knew my dad, they knew my grandfather, they welcomed me in, like, that was no problem. But once I got on the reservation, it was like, I don't know any of these people, and none of these people know me. I walked around for a while, I watched the natives dance and do their ceremonial dances and wear, like, their Indian, costumes and the feathers, and, well, that was great and entertaining and very beautiful to see, and I'm like, okay, this is who I am. Like, these are my people, like, whatever. Anyway, so then there's, like, all the other stuff. Like, apparently after my grandfather, separated from my grandmother after having these two children with her, he went on to marry another woman and have children with that woman. So now there's, like, this rift, his children from the woman he married, his wife, their attitude is like, my mom and dad, we're their children, you're the other side, my father had these two kids with this woman, like, before I was born, whatever. But, like, there's, like, the family secrets and, family, like, problems. And then, like, here you come along, like, you have no choice in the matter. Like, you're just born. You didn't ask to be born, but here you are. And, it's not always a warm welcome from like the other children from the woman he married, and whatever transpired with him and this other woman, like maybe they had a good marriage, maybe they didn't. I don't know. As a child, like you stay out of grown folks' business, like you don't get involved with stuff. And then once you become an adult, you start hearing more stuff and you start observing more things. And, so I never personally met my grandfather's other children by this woman he married. We do know of each other. And it wasn't until my adult years after my grandfather passed on that I started interacting with these people over social media, Facebook. So, I ended up friending my father's, I don't really want to say half brothers, but in today's society, that's what it is. Like they got this like, oh, we're only half brothers or we're only half sisters. Like we may have the same mom but different dads, or we may have the same father but different moms. So now it's like this half and half, which it is what it is. Like this is not my invention. This is nothing I made up. Like this is just what it is. So now you have these half brothers and half sisters from this other woman. At one point, some of the Narragansett Indians was like, they didn't even know about my grandfather's first two children, which is my dad and my aunt from my grandmother. So when I came on the scene, it was some people did not know about my grandfather's first two children. Some people did within the Narragansett tribe and had to explain to the other Narragansett Indians who were unaware of my grandfather's first two children before he married his wife and had children with her. They had to like inform these people like, yeah, my grandfather had two children by another woman before he met his wife and married his wife and decided to have children with her. So I didn't grow up with my grandfather's like other children. Like I just always know my mom and dad and my grandfather and my grandmother. So here we are as adults, and from what I observe, like Narragansett Indian people are so full of pride, like and I'm sure they have every reason to be. Like if anybody knows the history of the Narragansett tribe, or just American Indians in general, and the history of what they went through when supposedly the English people showed up and took over their land. Again, that was before my time. It has nothing to do with me. I wasn't born back then. But now that I'm learning all this history, like, am I supposed to feel some type of way about Caucasians or the English people who showed up in Rhode Island and claimed the Narragansett Indians' land? Like, it's just so much. It's just so much for a person to process. Now, mind you, while dealing with my father's side of the family, as far as my grandfather, my grandmother, their two children, which is my dad and my aunt, and then learning that my grandfather married this other woman and had like, I don't know, 2 or 3 kids, maybe more, because there's like 2 or 3 boys, and then I do know that there is a girl involved, my aunt. I don't know if I should say half aunt or whatever, but this is my grandfather's children. Like, he's got children over here. He's got children over here. They know about each other. I don't know how they interacted with each other growing up. I don't know how that works. Like, my half brothers and sisters, and then the brothers and sisters have children. Here comes the grandchildren. Like, I'm new to all this. Like, I did not choose to be in the middle of all this. I don't know, like, how the relationships went as far as, the first woman my grandfather had 2 kids with, and the new woman, or the woman he met and decided to marry and have children with her. You know, that was before my time. All I know is this man is my grandfather, his son, my dad, we are Narragansett Indian, you know, and then they have all this stuff where like you gotta register with the Narragansett Indian tribe and you gotta get your tribal name and like like you gotta kind of prove that you are who you say you are, which I think is bullshit. Like, I'm not gonna jump through freaking hoops to prove like who my dad is and who my grandfather is. I'm not gonna jump through freaking hoops to prove that I am who I say I am as far as a Narragansett Indian. To me, it's not even that important. Like, because I do have another side, like my mother's side, and that's like a whole nother story. So anyway, here we are. So, like I said, it's a lot to be depressed about because unfortunately, these adults may feel a certain way about the children, meaning myself. I don't have control of adults and where they go and, who they lay with and who they decide to have children with. I don't have control over the fact that I was born into this, and I know who my people is. I know who my dad is. I know who my grandfather is. Whatever secrets my grandfather kept when he was alive as far as having a family here and a family there, like I have nothing to do with that. Like I said, I've never personally met my grandfather's other children. We have bumped across each other on Facebook. And, through Facebook, like, yeah, they welcomed me in. They addressed me as, their niece or whatever. But as far as like doing all that stuff to prove like who I am, what I am, like, yeah, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. This is the life that we are born into. There is so much we don't have control over. But, as far as what I identify as, whether I am half Narragansett Indian from my dad, whether I may have some Italian blood in me because my grandmother's father was Italian, whether I am whatever the heck my mother is, African American who claims to be West Indian from Barbados, but yet I don't think you've ever been to the West Indies or Barbados. Like, I don't think you've ever been outside of Massachusetts. And the fact that, and she may be, like her father died when she was 18 years old. Maybe he was a man from Barbados. I don't know. I never met the man. My grandmother, my mother's mother, I never met her. So I don't know what her nationality is. All this is to say, like, it is a crazy world out there. It really is. And, when I first started recording my video, I was playing, let me see what the name of that song is. I know I said it to you guys, but because I'm in my 50s and, sometimes I'm just like all over the place and I get like mixed up sometimes. So anyway, I was playing Big Daddy Weave, a song called Redeemed. And I love that because for me, right, it doesn't matter who I identify as. It doesn't matter like what culture I am or what nationality I am. I'm a human. I didn't choose to be in this world. God, through my parents, brought me into this world. And that's pretty much what I identify as. I am a human being. I am a child of God. And in the song, like, Big Daddy Weave, I am redeemed, like, I freaking love that. Because that tells me, like, I don't have to worry about what my nationality is, what my culture is. I don't have to jump on board and fight with these people, these adults of, like, having some freaking type of identity crisis, like trying to identify who they are, prove who they are. And this is the stuff that they instill on children. So when I talk about learned behaviors, this is the stuff I'm talking about, because it's like you learn these behaviors from your environment, from the adults who are supposed to love and care and protect you. You know, it's chaotic. So for me, like I said, I just identify as a child of God. You know, I don't have to act Narragansett Indian because I am Narragansett Indian, and I don't have to jump through hoops to prove who I am. I don't have to act like an African American woman because apparently through my mom, I'm freaking African American. You know, and generations back, there's no telling, like, you know, even in slave days, you had like Caucasian men sleeping with African American slave women and having babies by them. So, you know, this whole world is so caught up on who is what do you identify as, you know, oh, I'm up here because I know that I'm Narragansett Indian and you're down here because we just don't know about, you know, we don't talk about that. Like, thank God. Thank God I am redeemed. Thank God that I don't have to get hung up on all that, because let me tell you, spiritually, that kind of stuff will kill you. You know, it will make you feel less than. It will kind of confuse you about who you are. There's so much pride people have in identifying with what nationality they are. Like, do people not realize, like, we all came into this world the same way and we all are leaving this world the same way? I don't get what the big deal is. But like I said, like, thank God I'm redeemed. You know, I shake off those heavy chains. I wipe away every stain that people, you know, put on me. Like, all this stuff is not my stuff. You know, I don't need to carry all this. You know, I have to, like, take all this stuff and give it back to the people who gave it to me and say, no, thank you. You know, you can stay over there. You can stay over there. And I'm going to stay right here with my Heavenly Father, who doesn't question, like, what nationality I am, whose child I am. Oh, no, that's a secret over there. Oh, yeah, we're not doing that. I am redeemed. I don't have any stains. I'm so grateful and honored to know the truth. You know, even in a world that is so chaotic, you know, there's so much to be depressed about. Like, the world will put you in a state of great depression. But through my higher power, whom I choose to call God, my Heavenly Father, you know, all that confusion is washed away. You know, all that heaviness is lightened. Like, I feel at peace. You know, I'm at peace with all this. You know, I think I'm beautiful. You know, that's that confidence. It's not being conceited. You know, it's the confidence. Like, I'm not perfect. I have crooked teeth. You know, I should have had braces when I was a kid, but hey, mom didn't get me braces, and now this is what it is. You know, my hair it's not all that short, but it's not really that long. You know, it's not that fine, but it's not that kinky. You know, I'm in my 50s, guys. Come on now. And this is all my Heavenly Father. It has nothing to do with Narragansett Indian. It has nothing to do with African American. You know, it has nothing to do with half Italian or whatever else freaking blood runs through these veins that I have no idea about. This is all God. And you cannot go wrong with that. Just want to jump online and talk about that stuff, guys. So, like I said, I just got in from work. It's usually my day off, but I decided to work it. And I wanted to do this quick video before, because, like, when I get home from work, I like to, like, get undressed, take a shower, put some comfortable clothes on, let my hair out, pull it up in a bun, and get real comfortable. But I can't go online looking like that. So let me just do my stuff. I'm not dressed fancy. I had to work today. I am dressed, and, like I said, just want to jump on real quick and address one of the reasons that, you know, has affected my mental health, you know. And just let you guys know, like, I know the difference. I know who I belong to. I know who made me from the top of my head to the sole of my feet. And I'm okay with that. Have a good day, guys. Bye.